there, and welcome to the Seven Figure Network podcast. My name is Melford Bibbins, and today I am so lucky to be joined by Larry and Taylor Thompson. They are truly legends in the industry, and I'm going to tell you, this interview is so long, we actually broke it up into two parts. So I hope you enjoy part one of Larry and Taylor Thompson on the Seven Figure Network podcast. Hi there, welcome to the Seven Figure Network podcast. My name is Melford Bibbins. Today I'm joined by Larry and Taylor Thompson, two absolute legends in the industry. They just got back from A&MP, speaking on stage in front of all the people in the industry that really move the needle. So you know that I'm going to have to ask them questions about that. I also want to know about what they've seen over this time period in the industry. LT and Taylor have been so giving with their knowledge in this industry. You know, it doesn't, yes, they made a ton of money. Yes, they've helped out tons of people. They've, impacted millions of families. But one thing that I love about these two is they tell it like it is. They don't beat around the bush, and they know that this is an industry that can be made or broken by the way people are taught. That's why they've always really put their foot down when it comes to what are we going to teach people about their success? What's going to make sure that everybody knows what's going on in the industry? No lies, no BS. So guys, first and foremost, thanks so much for coming here. I know you guys just got back from this trip. I so appreciate you hopping on today.
Well, thanks so much for having us here, Mel. And then, thank you so much for your patience, because me and my craziness, I've scheduled, rescheduled, anyway. So you're a very gracious host. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, listen, it's an honor to speak with you, and we know a little bit about your past here, and you've done such a great job. And I know you got some new stuff. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know what all the dates is about ready to happen. And wish you the best of luck with that. And we're always available for any kind of talk and GPS you want, and help you out in any way we can.
Thank you, guys. I so appreciate that. You know I'm going to take you up on that, because we cannot wait to get our book out. And I want you to read it first. That is as important to Conchetta and me as anything else, is you guys reading this book and saying, yeah, this thing makes sense. So thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, I have to ask, even though I'm sure a lot of people know this, please tell me the story about what got you guys into the industry in the very first place.
Wow.
I gotta know.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. All right. Okay. How many times is that going to happen in our life that the wife says, you talk?
I feel like I won already.
Take advantage of that one, guys. Pay attention. Okay. But my story goes back 54 years. Okay. And go back to 1968. And I ended up at a meeting. That was the only way of getting any information back then, either that or home parties. And I got invited by a friend of mine that I was a construction worker. I was a long-haired hippie construction worker. That's not unusual today, but back then it was highly unusual. And I never finished school, high school, because I was too shy to give the oral book report that was required back then. I don't think they have to know how to read today, but back then they had to know how to read the book, write about it, and walk across the stage. I did the work, but I was too shy to do this. And what's interesting about it is it was a very small town. And so 1st through 6th grade, I went to the school with the same kids. Mm-hmm. Then 7th and 8th, the same kids. Then high school, the same kids. Okay, it was just progressive. And so it wasn't like I was out of place or anything, but I just couldn't walk across the stage and give that book report 2 years in a row. And I could tell you the color of your shoes, but not your eyes. It was that kind of thing. Yeah. And so when I became 16, I quit school and went to work in construction work. And that wasn't a downgrade for me, because I was going to go out of high school. I was going to go to work anyway, just 2 years earlier, because my dad, my brothers, my cousins, my uncles, everybody did the construction work thing. And it was a big deal for the family. It was the unit. And so I was going to end up there anyway. And so that's what happened to me. I quit school and went into work. I loved my job. I really did. I loved it. It was my family, and everybody was very good at it. And they were, everybody's trying to up over the next one, you know what I mean? And it was a family deal, and it was everything that happened. And so I wasn't, when I came down to look at the first opportunity I ever looked at, I've only looked at 5 in my life, okay? But the first one I ever looked at in my life, I was not there for the opportunity, okay? I was there because Mike Fuller, another construction worker friend of mine, a little older than us, I always liked Mike because we borrowed money from him on Thursday for the lunch truck. Okay. We were broke. He still had money. So that's a guy you want to pay attention to. You know what I mean? Maybe a few dollars, but he's got it and I don't. And he's the one who invited me out. And so I kind of had a great feeling about it was something special, you know, but I didn't think much about it. The only reason I went was because it was going to be held at the Hyatt Hotel in San Jose, California. Now, at that time, it does not the big overpasses we have right now. It was a real funky intersection. Nobody's old enough to remember, but Highway 101 and First Street right there in San Jose, and it had a bridge, and there weren't many of them back there then. And you drove over it, and I could see that hotel. And what got me was the hotel was something, you know, and I could never imagine even being in there. But they had that porte cochere, you drive your car underneath, and they open your doors. I said, "Whoa." Man, that's so cool. And I always thought about it. Every time I drove by that hotel, I thought, man, wouldn't that be something? And so when he told me it was going to be at the Hyatt Hotel, I said, I'm in. And I had 15 minutes to get ready. And I was having a bad hair day. So, you know what I mean, with the long hair. So am I going to be okay? But I went to that meeting that night, and it was a company called Best Line Products. Okay. And Best Line Products is a great company. I don't know if you're aware. Do we have that legend book up here? Okay. They did DSN last year, did a special direct sales news magazine that do the top 100 every year. They did a thing on the legends, and it was anybody that had served in the industry for over 50 years that was still active. Wow. Okay. And there was 7 people, 7 of us identified, one of them declined. But in the book, there's 6 people in that book that 50 years service, still active today as owners, primarily corporate, what are top distributors are still active today. Major guys, okay, all of them major guys. Okay, out of the 6, 4 came from Best Line Products.
Wow,
and that tells you that there was a foundation there. That's how I was introduced to this space. And I got there that night. It's a very interesting story because there was 2 people I met that night. One person I met that night, 2 people that was caused out of that night. And one of them was Bobby Depew. Bobby Depew is the unsung hero in our space. Okay. He used to be a school teacher, a science school teacher in a little town called Lindsay, California, about 5,000 people, San Joaquin Valley there. And he was the original strategist and tactician from my experience. And nobody's ever questioned it, okay, because of all the succession after that of all the different people. But he had a way of communicating that really got me. Nobody wanted me at that meeting because of the way I looked, okay? I was plain and everything, but, bad hair day, wearing my moccasins and my beads, but I felt like I was only talking to me at the meeting. He had that ability, and but you got to also understand who else was in that room, which was the DNA profile of that generation, and it was 3-piece suits, okay, whiskey drinking at the meeting, cigar smoking at the meeting, white shoes, Cadillac drivers. That was the profile, okay. And here's the hippie, you know what I mean? and no one wanted to sit next to me and Mike at all, but here's what got me. I like Bob because he made me feel good. You know what I mean? Instead of, how people make the mistake of judging and stuff. And, but he got me at the end. And before then, all I was thinking about was how I was going to get to the guys, tell them about how they opened the doors. And I had that big pool. You had to walk around. Nobody had a pool in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? The community pool was just a little dump, but nobody had a pool. Walking like Las Vegas, that's what I visualized it as. And we got there, and Bobby gave that meeting. Here's what got me at the end. He said, listen, I'd like to be able to tell all of you that you can. I said, that's the first thing he said, we're making a lot of money here. He said, I think you can see here that we're all making a lot of money. And you can always smell it, taste it, feel it, that people are sincerely moving ahead. And it isn't numbers of money, it's numbers of degree that it's working well. You know what, you can feel it, taste it. And so he said, but you can tell we're making a lot of money here. And I felt that way. And he said, and I'd like to be able to tell you that you can make this money too. I'd like to be able to promise to you, actually. He said, but I can't. And he said, but I can share this with you with 100% confidence. He said, what if? Okay, what if? And I brought that phrase forward for 54 years. What if? Okay. it only turns out 10% for you what it has for us.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, most people, when I share that story, they think about, wow, well, what was the 10%? Here's the deal. It wasn't that. It was that I only had enough confidence to accept 10% and gave away 90%. Okay. And the long-haired hippie. That's how most people start in this space. It's just like that. And so Bobby was very significant. As I said, original strategist and tactician of our space, psychological, and man, every word he said, but every word had special meaning, and it's unbelievable. Sometime we can go into that. I've done a training class on explaining that, not training it, because I could never train it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that happened was there was another guest there just like me for the first time that night. And we both joined the same company the same night. And that gentleman's name was Jim Rohn. Okay?
Wow.
Jim Rohn and I not only joined the same company the same night, the same meeting. And Bobby had wanted Jim to come in and be the vice president of the sales. And Jim says, listen, I'll come. I want to do there. I'll get it done. He said, but I won't start as vice president of sales. He said, I'll start as a distributor and prove myself out. And then we'll transition in the next 6 months or so. And it only took 90 days. And my first training class I ever attended in my life was Jim Rohn's 3 weeks later. And he was building up a group, and they opened a training class up for everybody. And it was called PMA. Okay. And that stood for positive mental attitude. Now, awesome. You got to understand, I had no idea what an attitude was at all. You know, I knew, I thought an attitude was flipping my hair or scratching. You know what I mean? That's what I thought an attitude was. But positive mental attitude, that almost scared me off. Be honest with you, you know. And the other thing was, it was going to be $10, including lunch. And I didn't know if I should spend $10. And my wife at the time, we decided we could only spend 10, not 20. So I went there by myself. And at the end of that meeting, I waited. I did something so out of character for me. I waited till everybody left, and then I went up to Jim and shook his hand, and we spent about 5 minutes together there at the back of the room. And then he became vice president within 90 days. And they nurtured me and guided me to the #1 spot in the company. And I didn't know I was #1. They never published it like they do today. Mm-hmm. But what they were doing was Bobby and Jim was working with me, helping me out, as you know, not by giving me anything, but by slapping me around when I needed it, you know, verbally, and you know the deal. Mm-hmm. And but they took me under the wing so that they could say, hey, what's wrong with you, Mr. Three-Piece Suit? If he can do it, that hippie can do it, why can't you do it? And so that's kind of what happened there. And then that 13 years later, we started Herbalife, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, you know, one thing I love is, you don't know this about me, but my dad was a mechanic. So I love meeting other guys who grew up blue collar. You know, I grew up as blue collar as it gets, and to meet other folks that have had it. And another thing you said that I just love, I mean, to me, this is like a platinum nugget. This surpasses gold. The fact that they said you could only do 10% and you lowered yourself to that level instead of raising yourself.
Most people do.
Until you use those words, that connection never made sense in my head. That when you tell people that, you know, we're doing this, but even if you did 10% of it, you'd be doing great. Well, you just put me in a 10% box. Who the hell do you think I am? Like, do you think that little of me that you put me in a 10% box? I never put that 2 and 2 together. Thanks, LT.
But to me, it's an opposite. It's a positive. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because most people sell them shorts and sell themselves for it anyway. Mm-hmm. If you say, if it only, would it be, Okay. Yeah. And I gave away the 90. He gave me permission to accept that. Okay. Versus you can do it using adjectives versus adverb instead of perhaps maybe. Yeah. This is, you can do it, you know, and that's what we have a tendency to do rather than letting them come to their own natural logical conclusion. I'm willing to try this thing because there's not too much disgrace if I don't. Okay. If you have put too much of a high bar for them to achieve, some people, even though they're successful, will let themselves down.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Taylor, I got to hear your origin story. How'd it start?
So interestingly, so a lot of whenever I got started, I was way different from Larry. I was a West Texas girl, right? I was raised on the other side of the tracks, and but I'm like, and different from him is that I had an education. I went to school, I went to college, you know, got an education, but I found myself with a brand new baby, being married with a brand new baby, and that changed my life forever. And I know that, moms listening here today, at the first time you hold that baby with those baby blues looking at you, whatever dreams and aspirations or drive or whatever that is that you had prior to that moment, all of that goes out the door. Yeah. And so I couldn't bear the thought of putting her in daycare at that time. And so I was, I was desperately seeking an opportunity that I could stay at home and contribute. I did the calculations, me working full time and paying for daycare, that equated to about $800 a month. Mm-hmm. And so I say that I was just wanting mom care versus daycare. And so I had started answering ads in the newspaper. And for those of you who may not know what a newspaper is.
That's a fact.
Ouch. Ouch.
That was 28 years ago, right? So, so for those of you who don't know, I'll translate it. It's a curiosity post that it comes to either your home or you buy and you read at the kitchen table at breakfast. That's what a newspaper is. So I answered a one ad, right, which is that curiosity post that was soliciting an opportunity to work from home. And I raised my hand, right? And I said, answered the call, tell me more about what you do. And so for me, it was a really interesting journey because there's a lot of those. Honestly, there wasn't all the shiny objects. There wasn't all the opportunities at that particular time like there were now. I'm going to take you back to where that was before internet. That was before cell phones. That's whenever phones were hardwired to the wall, and a lot of people, I know that's a really hard concept to wrap your brain around, but that was the environment that we were in. And so there was, it just so happened to be that it was Herbalife, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to share this because this plays an integral part of the story. And what we talk about now is that I was answering ads and they were trying. Now, keep in mind, I just had a baby. I needed to lose weight and I would get them on the phone and then they would try to sell me their weight loss product. And I'm like, that made no sense to me. Like I'm trying to make money and you're trying to get me to spend money. Right. And so it was completely illogical. But, at the same time, I was like, I don't want to sell anything. I'm not interested. I don't want to sell anything, and so there was really funny because there was this lady that lived right across the street from me and she had all these bumper stickers. And I know nobody even knows what they were like magnetic bumper stickers all over her car. Lose weight now, ask me how, all this stuff. And I'm dear Lord, if that's what you have to do to be successful, I'm definitely not interested in that. And but I was in the interim, I was answering these, and I know this sounds so crazy, but there was scams and schemes back then. It was like they had these things like work from home, stuffed envelopes, make money, and I would send off to get these, and it was just all a scheme and a scam. Quite like there are today, to get your money. And there was no real opportunity involved. I made beaded jewelry, like beaded earrings. You had to make 400 pair to be part-time. And after it took me 6 hours to make one, I was like, wow, this mouth is not working. I know this sounds crazy. I processed goat hair out of my bathtub because I thought I was going to make doll's hair. How pretty dolls, the beautiful doll, like the blonde, how I was going to, I call it desperate times, right? It was really truly in that moment that I was like, God, is there really anything out there? And I say all that to say this, it's funny now, it wasn't at the time. But I say all that because I think each one of us have to go through the speed bumps or the journey to get to a place to where you're open, right? To where you're open to hear what somebody has to say because you understand you're at a different place or because you've gone through the trials and tribulations, if you will. So I went back to the newspaper, I answered an ad, and they started sharing a story with me whenever I started the conversation, and they shared with me about this couple at the time that was living in this little bitty town, the West Texas town, not probably 15 miles from where I lived, and a really, really tiny town, and they were making $10,000 a month. Now, what's interesting about this story is that I was like Larry, because I heard the 10,000, but I never ever believed or dreamed that a mom or, somebody like me, West Texas girl could make $10,000 a month at all. But what I did believe is that surely if they can make that kind of money, maybe, just maybe, I could make 800. That's what I heard in the story. So like Larry, I defaulted to that 10%.
Yeah.
And so I got started, and what was interesting. So I share all the previous things because what they did tell me at that time was that they said, okay, so I was like, what do I need to do? Well, you need to get on this product and you need to get results. And so now I connected the dots why taking this product made sense to create a story that I could take to the marketplace. Not as clear as concise as I just communicated it to you just now, but I connected the dots where I knew that was the path for me to make money, not necessarily going down the path to spend money. Mm-hmm. And so it was a different perspective and a different positioning and posture, the way that they presented it to me. And, my very first week, I made $420. In my very first month, I made an extra $2,400, and I was off to the races. But what was interesting about this whole thing and how our dots connect is because I had just came into Herbalife as Larry had left.
Oh, funny.
But they had in my distributor pack, it was just my team primarily at that particular moment that they was talking. There was a set of these millionaire training tapes. Now, it wasn't a book. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say something that maybe your audience have never heard before either. It was called an audio cassette. So that you listen to, it was this audio cassette player, and it was like talking about, how to employ yourself and how, a mental projector and really business concepts that I'd never heard before. Mm-hmm. Even though I had a college degree, I'd never heard those things before. So I learned about Larry. Larry was my mentor from afar. Mm-hmm. And so now going back to the lady that lived across the street from me, she happened to be my upline. And
the one with all the bumpers.
The one with all the bumpers, no. Right? That answered the ad. But more importantly is that her upline was Larry's sister, which was the lady truck driver. She was the first Herbalife distributor in the state of Texas. So I was very fortunate to come into this, what I call this learning, teaching environment that allowed for somebody like me with no real belief to be cultivated, to incubate into a top earner in this space. Yeah. And so, that's kind of a little bit about how I got started. Mm-hmm. And then, years later, I was in a very tumultuous, abusive marriage. I left that marriage. I was a single mom of 3 little girls whenever Larry and I met. And it was after Mark Hughes had passed away in May of 2000, and the organization everybody was in disarray, and Tish had contacted Larry and said, we need your help. Will you work with us? And so she took 10 of her top people in her organization. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those that she hand selected, and went to California, got to meet Larry the first time. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you believe in love at first sight. I know that we do, but at that particular time, I was the last one out of the limo. I met him at in his stairs. If you want to go Google where Jamie Foxx lives, that was the house or the mansion or whatever it was where we met. I thought I was a groupie, Mel. I was like, oh my God, I'm a groupie. It was crazy. But, 18 months later, we had our first date, and we just celebrated 17 years of marriage in May. And so couldn't be happier. So that's our story of how we got started, and kind of fast forward to where we are now.
No, that's so great. I so appreciate you guys explaining that to me. And again, individually, I really, honest to goodness, wanted to hear the individual story. And one thing that you said there that, it's almost like a cliche now. Everybody says, oh, this is the best time ever. This is the best time ever. People have no idea what it was like before the internet, before cell phones. We were excited when fax machines came out. it's funny when you were saying that, I was thinking of an old thing that one of the old scams was, you would buy a list of 100 tips of how to make money.
Exactly.
And one of the tips was make a list of 100 tips and sell it. I literally just sold myself this thing. What is going on here? Like, folks have no idea what it's like now. And I'm not trying to sound like an old man. I'm not trying to say, I climbed uphill both ways to go to school kind of thing. But it's such an amazing time. Like we were talking about before we hit the record button. This is such an amazing time because of the gig economy, transitioning professionals, men, people who've just never had a real foothold in this industry. Now's the time. I mean, this couldn't be a better time than ever. So I got to ask you guys one thing, because, like me, you've gone through a lot of economic downturns. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember the gas thing back in the 70s. As I said, my dad was a mechanic. We owned a garage. I remember the gas shortage of the 70s. So when I talk about the gas shortage, I'm like, oh, you guys have no idea. You don't remember what a mile-long line was, or else you were...
Or even an odd number.
Or odd days. Remember that? Your license plate was an odd number. You couldn't get gas. People's cars were parked on the side of the road out of gas. People have no idea. I mean, again, I'm not trying to do the whole, walk both ways up to school thing, but let's go through how you guys see the economy now as compared to some of the ups and downs we've seen. And again, you can start from the 70s with the gas thing, but obviously the 80s and 90s, people were just making money like crazy and throwing it around. 2006 through 2008, everything falls apart. So the three of us have seen this so many times in the economy. What I need you to pull out the little crystal ball right now. We'll go for the bigger crystal ball later.
I think it's got to go. I think it's got to go beyond the economic issues. Okay, because there's two things that are happening right now. Certainly the downturn in the economy, but there's something else that's happening: the upturn in the gig world.
Amen.
Okay? So that means there's opportunity. And this is great. And I'm so happy you asked this question, because in our space, we had pretty much been regulated out of existence, during the 60s and the 70s. And they came pretty quick and they came pretty hard, and almost everybody folded immediately, almost immediately, except Amway. Amway said, no, this is a viable opportunity and we're going to fight to death do us part kind of deal. Yeah. And they did for years with the FTC. Interesting enough, in that timeline, I'm going to come back to the economy in there because there's some very significant things that happened in that transitional time that's vital if you understand it today. But one thing that Amway did, they used to support in Michigan a local councilman, that then became the mayor, who then became part of the House of Representatives, that ended up being the president of the United States through Spiro Agnew getting out and all the stuff that happened. Gerald Ford, Gerald Ford became, the president of the United States, and he's going through all of those things. He had power, and so he knew Amway, and he said, you guys work this out. He told the FTC, work this out, not because of influence, but because this is a good company, this is a good distribution system, can be abused, of course, but work it out. And in 1979, that happened. Now it started earlier on, but it happened in 1979, where Amway signed off. And then for the first time in my knowledge, if anybody else's knowledge, was the first time that multi-level marketing was used, was in that document. Multi-level. Now, one thing about network marketers, multi-levelers, one thing about it, they're good at hijacking everything. Language, no matter what it is, man. They hijack it. Well, when was it? 10, 15 years ago that they called themselves network marketers, and it stuck. And I don't have a problem with that, but I'm actually congratulating them, you know what I mean? Because it's certainly in our times now. So anyway, so in 1979, that happened. Well, guess what it did? Remember that cigar smoking, whiskey drinking, three-piece suit, white suit guy driving the Cadillac? That was the audience. That was the only audience that existed back then for this type of an opportunity. Yeah. But now, when these rules came out for the first time, it was now a legitimate legitimate methodology of being able to grow a business. And guess what happened? The audience changed overnight. The language that audience talked to each other with, it wasn't the three-piece suit guys, it wasn't a hard car sell guys, Audience language and behavior changed overnight. We identified that, I'd had enough experience with what had happened before, and very few people ever made it.
We meaning Herbalife.
Yeah, with Herbalife, And so we got there, and so 1980, when we started Herbalife, we started it from the perspective of the new audience. The language. In other words, what is that new audience? The single mom. Okay, what is it? The waitress, the school teacher. What is it? It's the construction worker. It's the truck drivers. Okay, it's the regular everyday people that became part that would now listen to this messaging going on over here. And so we designed our whole. There were some pretty strict rules put on multi-level back then. We didn't care. We modeled our compensation plan after their rules. Not we said, okay, we're going to do this around the rules. And every company that was existing in the 70s that they didn't already tap on the shoulder, they didn't pay attention to that. What they did was they found a way to maneuver around the rules. And then the next 2 to 3 years, they were pretty much all out of business. But with Herbalife, we said, okay, here's the rules. How can it work? And we created it and identified the new audience language of behavior. And yes, it was coming back now to the economic situation. We were in a pandemic type of environment, just like we are now. What do I mean? Upheaval, uncertainty, as you said, the gas line. It's hard to believe what you said, that the cars were parked there by the side of the road in line at the gas station. Okay. And everybody, if you were there, they didn't go around you. Everybody pushed everybody's car to the front. Okay. If you was there and you were behind 4 or 5, you pushed them to the front. And so that whole uncertainty of finances, that whole uncertainty that was going on with Iran had overtaken our embassy in Iran, and interest rates and unemployment. It was just, other than the pandemic, it was much different, much harder then. Now the pandemic added a new dynamics to it, but the other stuff was worse. Okay, so now what happened? We identified that, and it took us about 1 year. Our first year, we only did $2 million worth of total sales, our first year, okay? But we were able to figure out that audience language and behavior around the new rules, okay? And around hope. Now there's hope, okay, going on because Reagan came in as president and all of that stuff. There's some new hope coming in. And that's when we really drove that thing home with that, identifying that. So that exists today. That pandemic type of environment of those elements, okay, they have a different shirt and tie on the same suit, but that suit was this.
But I want to backtrack, because that's kind of what pandemic type of environment does to where we are today. But I want to say something in between, because there was something really significant that happened to Larry and I in between all of this. And that was about, because we've always been about the 80, 15, and 5, right? The audience, right? 80% of your business being the people that want to make $500 to $1,000 a month, the defaulters, right? We'll call them the defaulters. And so that was the audience, and that's where the bread and butter part really is and has always been. But what happened, something significant happened in 2010, 2011 is whenever social media really started coming on the scene. And whenever we were consulting and doing, with companies and leaders, everybody wanted to do social media, and they were like, oh, what, you guys, that's old school. Like, we want to do new school. Like, that's the new school. Like, and so to be honest with you, we really hadn't quite wrapped our head around what was really being said and what that really meant. And so we started working really heavily over in Europe. And we worked primarily with a company that Larry had helped start in 1993, years before. And at that time they were doing about 120 million. And that was around 2011. And we started working with focus groups. And so this was people that weren't in social media. They had a very complicated product, that they were doing. So we really simplified the message. We were working with everyday people, and we were working with a core group of about only 13 people that started in Spain through translation. And it was all the basics. It was all the fundamentals that we've always taught, and without the social media aspect. And they started growing, really, really quick. Well, what happened is that message, that story started telling and circling around the company. Then Italy wanted to know, what are they doing? What's happening? We want to do what they're doing. And this is all this is all validate this point here, and why I'm taking this a certain direction. But the demographic, what the difference between Italy and Spain was, the demographic was between the ages of 18 to 25. They had never been in network marketing, but they were highly involved in social media, where the people in Spain hadn't been.
Interesting.
So what they did was they took our message that we had taught them. The message was the same. And then the kids in Italy took that message onto social media, and they grew exponentially.
Yes.
And so what happened for us was that we realized the message is the same. Social media was the delivery mechanism. It's not old school, new school. It was how the social media accelerated the delivery of the message. Yeah. And so we were like, we're still relevant, right? I mean, and we really validated that with the company, because Larry at the time told them that company, PM International, was, that they were going to, he said, give me 10 years. He goes, I think we'll hit it by 2018, but give me 10 years. If we just GPS a few things, I think this will happen. Well, he missed the prediction by 1 year. They did $1.2 billion and grew at a rate of 30 to 35% every year with this simple strategy. Simplicity is strategy, is what we say. And so this year they're on target to do over $3 billion. Now that's in a period of 11 years. Yeah. Started at 120. So there is a reason for that. Audience, language, behavior. Now, I'm going to go back to Spain for just a minute, because whenever we were doing with Spain, they were in an economic downturn. They had economic chaos going on, and they grew in spite of that. So whenever we came back to the States and we started working in 2019, we started identifying the audience, which was the gig economy. We had our first gig summit, and we really identified the 60 million people that were legitimately looking for $500 to $1,500 extra dollars a month. And whenever you looked inside of that, then there was a demographic of ages. Everybody talks about millennials. We got to go after the millennials. But whenever you looked at that 60 million as a whole, only 25% of those male were under 35.
Interesting.
There, from 35 to 55 was 50% of that 60 million.
Holy cow.
55 and up, the other 25. So think about it. 75% of that 60 million wanted $500 to $1,500. And network marketing has only been fishing out of this pond, the 25%. And so whenever we really started making those connections, and we were like, okay, people are missing the message. They're missing the simplicity of the message. And so this is what we've been talking about here. Whenever fast forward now to where we've gone through the pandemic. Now, where we've seen currently, we shared this a little bit on the A&P, is that in February of just 22, we had a 10% inflation. We haven't had that 10% inflation in 40 years. Herbalife.
Yeah.
Same dynamics, right? Same dynamics. So we're truly in the same climate that Larry was with Herbalife.
Yeah.
We're same thing, right? We're in the same boat.
And the audience has changed again. The language has changed again, and the behavior has changed again.
Yep.
Audience, language, and behavior always change. Let's go to baseball. Okay. Baseball has fundamentals. Okay. Simple. Run, hit, catch, throw. Guess what they do all the time? Practice, run, hit, catch, throw. Okay. That's what they do. Now, they have new technology today that will show you muscle strains here and there, and they'll show you by videos, the reason that you missed that play out in left field was because you were standing like this instead of like that, and the technology gives them, but it's run, hit, catch, throw. It never changes, okay? And so guess what? Some guys can run better than others. Some guys can hit better. Some can catch, and some can throw better. Okay, doesn't matter. It takes those fundamentals to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
And so now we find ourselves in this pandemic type of environment. And it's been coming now that we have two things that we got to take a look at and we got to get good at. Okay. We all believe in network marketing. Okay. And, occasionally I'll call it multi-level. Okay. I'll never call it Ponzi like it used to be. Okay. But, that ain't going to happen. Okay. But network marketing, okay, is a viable mechanism that we all believe in. Social media, there's two things that we're dealing with right now that's keeping network marketing companies from accelerating. As a matter of fact, it's getting them to decelerate. They're almost all of them are having down years because they missed these things I'm trying to share with you right now. And hopefully I'll do a good job of articulating.
Well, I forgot to put this part because I think this is an important part, because what I didn't share in that first part is that from 2011 to 2015, our space as a whole grew, right? No. Now, these are all official numbers through the DSA. So I'm not saying anything that you can't go find on your own. So that's social media. Everybody wanted to do that, right? But something significant happened after 2015. The numbers as a whole globally have been on a decline.
Bingo.
They've been going down.
2015 was the peak.
So what Larry's about to share with you really kind of puts this in perspective as to why this has gone up and why it's been going down. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you got to realize something. The things that I'm sharing with you here today just became so clear to me after coming out of this weekend with the Association with Network Marketing Professionals that was broadcast virtually around the world. Okay, it became clear to me because we're sitting in the audience with some very good, everybody's good people there. They were really good people, had good things to share, but they had specific things to share concerning social media. Yeah. And we've been talking about it. We're big believers in social media. You know why? It's always been here with us. It's never been gone. Okay, it was audio tapes. It was videotape. It was fax machines, as you brought up. It was those bank of 800 numbers that you could send them to. It was the list that you would buy off of and it'd come in a big box, not by FedEx back then. And so that was it. They didn't have Amazon then. And so all of that stuff was happening. And so what has taken place is I'm trying to say the challenge is not social media. I was always a social media guy. Ads. Flyers at Walmart, business card flyers, fax machines. That was social media. It wasn't this way or that way. The argument has come up against the hot rods that are doing good at social media, and you guys are doing it old school. Okay. There's no difference between the run, hit, catch, throw. Just like a fax machine didn't change old and new. Okay. It was a delivery system. Okay. Yes. And if you made the delivery, one of the big mistakes you could make, and I was always on the team saying, hey, you give them the opportunity to define where they are. Okay. It's just like Taylor here. Okay. Do you want to spend money or do you want to make money? In today's economy, how do you get a guy to raise his hand faster? By getting him to say, would you like to spend money on my product or would you like to make money selling my product? Okay. And if you have a way for them to do it with. So, okay, let me get back to the point here. Two things. Number one, we're dealing with social media thinking it's the goddess, and it's no different than a fax machine. Because I tell you, and about 4 years ago, we started talking about this, and I said, whatever goddess you're using today, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Facebook, no matter what it is, I will promise you in a year it'll be another delivery system. Okay, because it did go from audio tapes to videotapes to fax machines. I hate it a little. Okay, it did do that, and it's continuing to do that. So the challenge isn't getting good at that. There's people that are naturally good at that. I never ever taught my team how to do any kind of advertising. I did them to get it, and they said to get them, and they said, "Well, can I do advertising?" You can if you want to, but why don't you do it this way? Which is just talk to the friends or all these neighbors, a coworker. And now there's become a stigma, like there's something wrong with that. I hate to tell you, but there's a story in this book that made a whole bunch of people billions of dollars that talks about the gold mine attitude, 2 for 1. Okay, and so let's get it straight. It's so good for you, but it's not good enough for your neighbor. Okay, there's something wrong with the thinking. There's something wrong with the thinking, and it's been perpetuated. I understand it. I don't have any grief with it. I'm trying to point out the problem. Okay. And the problem that we have is you're going to take your new guy right in to social media fax machines or social media Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the personality for it. They don't have, but those that do, man, they're going to do great. So the battle, I don't like that word, but I got to get it out of my mind, is not social media or traditional, because that's not where the audience and language and behavior is. In network marketing, no matter if you're a social media guru, okay, or you're someone that's always done it the old school way. I want to know when that old school shut down and the new school started. I haven't got that one yet, but I'm trying to figure that one out. So, okay, I think it happened. New school started in 12 and ended in 15, but that's my thinking. Okay, or else this wouldn't have happened. Okay, everyone's going to be. So what? Okay, so now then, the situation is not social media or no social media. The situation isn't you do it, and I hate the word old school, but that's what there's no difference. Taylor's read a newspaper ad, okay, social media. That's a curiosity post. There's no difference.
Exactly.
We made these things out there and made them into something different, and it's run, hit, catch, throw. So we got that issue, okay? So we got the issue of how do you go about it? And social media, fax machine, okay, social media, okay, audio tapes, videotapes, okay, is a methodology. Yep. The basic fundamentals of run, hit, catch, throw are identical. So what have we done? Okay, especially coming up this weekend here, and we're going to be announcing this on May 21st exclusively to the ANMP. Okay, but what we've done here, anyone can buy it, but they're going to be the ones to launch that thing. Okay, through our generosity. Okay, because we're going to give this to them. Okay, so anyway, what we've done here is we built the roadmap, just like I built the roadmap for Herbalife in 1980, just like we built it for PM, that we're building road, and it's the bridge, not either traditional network marketing, it's all traditional, or social media. It's the bridge for whatever you use in traditional network marketing, social media or no social media. It's the bridge to the gig economy. And the gig worker. There's 60 million people in the gig economy right now that are looking for the kind of opportunity that network marketer provides, if whether you do it through an ad, something on Facebook, or you do it through TikTok, you do it through Instagram, or you do it with your neighbors, friends, and relatives. That's the bridge to show them how to get into the 60 million people, not the 6 million people that exist in our space. And it's a bridge. And that's what we provide, is that bridge, how to go from here to there, no matter what you use. And tell you what, most of them are going to start off on the friends, relatives, and name workers, unless they're good at social media. If they're good at social media, they'll contact them that way. Okay, it doesn't matter how they contact them.
So it's just really kind of simple from my perspective. It's like, people are trying to really teach people how to be marketers before they're network marketers.
Yes, very well said. Very well said.
And it's one of those things that, and so people come in and they're trying to teach them all these techniques, right? How to do it real and I have nothing against that. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. But I think we've lost a lot of good people because they were teaching them what to say instead of why you say it. You're teaching them what to do instead of why you do it. Instead of equipping them with how to share their story and why they joined and why they take or use their product or service, and share that with people they know and love, and let them take that most valuable tool that we forgot about to the marketplace. And that to me that's really simple, because like we had speakers this weekend. First, some people may or may not know the name Johnny Green, but if you've been in the space a while, you definitely know who he is, but he's known as the Ghost. So not many people may know him. So I don't know if you know him, but he has made millions in the network marketing, and he shared, like, I don't have a Facebook, I don't have an Instagram, I don't have a TikTok, I don't have any of those things. And so, that's not the only one, but that was one of the biggest ones. And I use the analogy of sharing with the audience is like, how many Johnny Greens do you walk past on a daily basis? potential Johnny Greens
Yeah, right.
that'll never be on your social media, that are looking for an opportunity or your product or whatever you have to offer, and you walk right by them because you're so focused on fishing in this pool instead of seeing everybody equal and how you're delivering the message. Are you delivering your story and your message online only or offline only? Good. Or do you have both oars in the water delivering your message? It's
completely. Really well said.
That's it.
And it really isn't important how you do it. It's important that you don't and push your people on your way of doing it. Let them find their own way of doing it and understand the 80, 15, and 5 rule, that 80% of your people are only interested in $500 a month.
Yeah.
15 are interested in 500 a week, and 5% interested in 500 a day. Okay. And you can be great at social media, have at it. Okay. But understand that if you get your people in and say, this is the way you do it. I can't imagine Bobby DePue and Jim Rohn telling me I had to go out here and run ads, do social media, do faxes, do all that. They said they understood that let me come, water finds its own level. And I realized that the network marketing industry is fighting with itself. Old school, new school, okay? Traditional, social media. That's not the battle. The battle is taking that message outside of the 6 million in our space to the 60 million that are actively looking for you right now. And listen, recruiting's okay. Everyone says you can't recruit to FTC. It's not true. You just got to follow the rules. Okay. And they're not that hard to follow. Okay. Especially if you use adverbs over adjectives. What do I mean? An adjective says you can do this, you can do that. An adverb says maybe, perhaps, not sure, maybe not. Okay. And now you put all that stuff on them and understand that group that's out there today in that social media world, 80% of those people, okay, only want $500 a month. And also remember what Taylor said. Only 25% of those 60 million are social media people. Only that. And influence. You got to get influence. Influencers are influencing their own business, not influencing the brand. They got their own brand. I don't have a problem with that. That business, that's good. But I'm telling you, 75% of them are Johnny Greens.
I mean, this is we always get asked this question. Do I lead with the product or do I lead with the opportunity? And when you understand what we're saying here, it's the same conversation. And what I mean by that is that it's not an either or whenever you understand how to position it properly. Because if it's true, because media says it, MSM says it, so I don't know. Maybe it's fake news. Got no idea. All right. So we're going to say if it's true, right? We're going to pretend it's true that inflation was 10% in February. If that's true, January your overhead was say $5,000. That means February it was $5,500.
Bingo.
And so how does somebody? I mean, they're already short at the end of the month anyway. How do they bridge that gap? Right? How do they get to that? And so I think now more than ever, this conversation is important because, we were told going into the A&P, people were like, they were saying, well, we got to tell them to get customers, tell them to get customers. And I'm like, but they need the opportunity.
Yes.
And they were like, but making 500 is, or, sharing that message is not compelling enough. And I'm like, how is it not compelling enough whenever somebody can't pay their light bill?
How do they know?
And we forget like what the struggles that people are really faced with today.
How do you know it's compelling to somebody unless you can look in their bank account or see if their kids haven't been fed today? How cocky, how could you have that audacity to say, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I know exactly what you're saying. That's where we were like going like, what?
It's the nature of a network marketer.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you've been behind your gates too long if you think that or feel that way.
Amen.
Because now more than ever, that story, that message is more compelling now than it probably has ever been.
Yeah.
And so whenever you can equip somebody very simply with, and I'm going to use the concept of downloading an app, You don't have to spend $1,000 to buy a big package. All you got to do is, right? Let's just get one customer a week, right? If you can just focus on getting one customer a week, what does that mean? By the end of the year, you could be positioned to be making that extra $500 a month just by one customer a week.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, depending on however your, the pay plan plays, but that's the concept. And that's doable. That's attainable. That's easy for the people like us that would default in the 10%, right? That's something that they can wrap their brains around instead of going out and saying, oh, you can make $10,000 a month with my opportunity, when they're like, dude, I just need to pay my light bill.
Yeah.
I just need a way to pay my light bill.
And today, because of what happened with the most current Herbalife stuff back in 2015, 16 with Ackerman, I don't know if anybody knows that, but it was this big stock battle, and it got into the courts and all that stuff. And they had some extra rules they put on. That's not the issue at all. It doesn't matter. You just work around, make the rules, honor them. Okay, be marketers and salesmen, but honor them. Yeah. And then the AdvoCare situation, for those of you that know what happened at AdvoCare, okay, and so they became the word is customer centric. Mm-hmm. More customers, the better. Okay, but do you get customers? Okay, to become distributors that get customers to become distributors that do what? Okay, get 5, 10. Okay, or can you get them to raise their hand faster today, making money versus spending money? But you say, well, but the rules, work without them. There's no big deal. There's no big deal. Don't listen to what you think. Don't listen to what other people say. Think yourself. Okay. There's the rules. Okay. And so what I'm really trying to communicate is, if you bring your people in and they're 80%ers and all they want is to make $500 a month, and you got them doing TikTok, changing their clothes 3 times a day, interfering with the family, okay, interfering with all of that, will that work? Yes, for a small percentage of your people. If you treat everybody with the same concept of run, hit, catch, throw, and it doesn't matter if it's someone you know, it doesn't matter if it's in your family, it doesn't matter if it's someone you got from Instagram, because what you're doing is taking them, no matter where they come from, the fax machine or Instagram, next door neighbor or old schoolmate, wherever they come from. The key is not that. The key is getting on the bridge to take them to the 60 million population. Yeah. And that's what we have identified, and that's what I know we put the pieces together. That's how we did it with Taylor is referring to that company in Europe, PM. We know how to do this, and we know how to do it very, very well. Okay. And it's not that complicated. Understand the database. Mm-hmm.
Hey there. I hope you really enjoyed the show. And now I have a question to ask. Do you want to know how to build a 7-figure network with just 3 to 5 enrollments a month? That's just 3 to 5 conversations, not 30 to 50. That means we only have to convince 3 to 5 people to say yes to build a real 7-figure network. Scan the code or click the link at the bottom of this page now to discover the step-by-step method for exactly how you can add hundreds, if not thousands of customers to your downline by recruiting and enrolling businesses and health professionals onto your team that have hundreds of built-in customers that need your product or opportunity. Get the 7-figure network book now, and let's start building massive volume with an enormous downline of businesses, health professionals, and customers.